started here, guys. Welcome to the Tuesday Notary Titans call for Tuesday, July 16th. I'm here with Laura Biewer. Laura, hi. I see you are on and live. Hello, you are muted though, so we can't hear you. But welcome. Thank you for spending your time with us. Laura is.
Now you can hear me.
Actually, I'm going to mute everybody again, so you're going to have to I'll unmute you. There you go. You got some background noise there.
Okay.
Welcome. Thank you. Your website is coachmelaura.com. And Laura, thank you for spending so much of your time and energy with us today.
Absolutely.
I've got some background noise here. Oh, is that Carol?
I am here, but
There
I'm going
she
to
is.
apologize. I'm not going to turn my camera on today, and my mic might go off and on. I have 3 students brand new who have their first signings this morning, so I expect my phone may ring, and I have to be able to jump onto it because that takes priority, and I apologize.
Yeah, no problem at all. Awesome. I love that. Well, thank you for being here, and thank you for making the time with us.
Carrie, you got it. You figured it out. Yay.
Oh, yeah. All right. Good. And then Carol Ray obviously is the founder of Notary to Pro. And Carol, congratulations on celebrating your 10-year anniversary this last weekend. That was huge.
Oh, it was so much fun. I got to meet so many students. They came from all over the place, and people I never really meet in face-to-face, and we had a really good time. And Laura was there. It was really nice. We enjoyed our time together. So, yeah, it turned out good.
Awesome. Well, since you're talking about that, you want to share something that you're excited about this week?
Put me on the spot.
Every week.
Yeah, well, just the way things are going. I'm excited about some things that are going on personally in my family, and I'm very excited with the way Notary to Pro is going. We're just getting some great students and the reputation they're building, and I'm very excited about that. So it just goes on. Sometimes there's not any particular highlights, but just every day.
Just thrilled about life. I love it. Thanks, Carol. Laura, how about you?
I've just got a lot of things going on at the same time. Of course, I'm pushing towards Notary Symposium, which is very exciting. I'm sure by now everybody on the call has heard me talk about this. It's coming up in the fall, October 5th, Southern California, November 16th for Northern California. We've got our speakers lined up. We've got our topics set. We have vendors or exhibitors coming. It's going to be an exciting day for everybody involved. So if you have not, there's still room. I got a call last night and she said, oh, I heard it was sold out and I couldn't get a ticket. That is not true. I wish it was already sold out, but it's not yet. But we are over halfway there. So if that's something you're considering, you might want to get in there on that early bird price and get yourself a seat. The other thing I'm excited about, and it'll be discussed further later, is I have another skill builder coming, and I love doing those. So you'll hear more about that coming. So those are my exciting pieces today.
Yeah, that's huge. And I typed in the website to Notary Symposium, guys, in the chat window if you're interested in exploring that and getting your tickets confirmed. Thank you for that, by the way, Laura. I'm excited to go to both of those this year. And then for me, I think the challenge working with optimists that are so excited about life is there's always some really good stuff, and there's almost too many good things to really cram into a 1 second or 1 minute description. But I've got a lot of stuff I'm excited about too, but I'm just going to focus on the one coming up tomorrow morning. That is with Melissa Johnson Eldridge out of Texas. She's kind of the emerging expert in the e-notary and remote online notarization training and platforms. She's going to join us for a live training call on the actual platforms. So I've got the Facebook event on the Sign and Thrive public page. So if you're interested in that, of course, I'll send out the link in the email too, so you can join us live. No registration required. You can just pop in and kind of see what all the technology is about surrounding Ron. And without further ado, why don't we jump in here and get started? The way that today will kind of work is we got some really great questions, but I'm going to flip things around. We're going to put Laura first this time because I held out to the very end last week, and we didn't get a chance to hear a great presentation. So I want to make sure that you guys get a chance to see this. Laura is talking about risky documents for today's mobile notaries. Laura, you want to take it away?
Yeah, I will. First of all, I'm excited to say I see 93 people signed on already in the first 5 minutes of the call. So that's pretty exciting to have that many people join us this morning. And this is similar to a skill builder. Think of it as a mini one. I just wanted to target some documents that specifically are more risky than any others that we may handle, and some special considerations that many of us, I'm sure, are already giving. But I want to make sure, especially newer notaries, are understanding some of the risk involved with documents. So let me go to my share. And let's see if I can get this puppy up. And slideshow. And I want it from the beginning. All right, is everybody looking at a PowerPoint? Bill, could you unmute yourself and tell me? Okay, great. Very good. So.
I see it.
And it changed pages for you. Perfect. All right, so let's talk about what are risky documents. I'm specifically targeting all kinds of deeds, as well as all kinds of powers of attorney and healthcare directives. Out of all the documents that I notarize for the public, and this is more concern in what we would call general notary work than the framework of loan signings. Within the framework of loan signings, you know, there's a vetting process. Everything but the kitchen sink has been looked at before I ever get there. So it's a little more safe, and there are a lot of people involved before I step in. When you're handling general notary work, it's you. You're the one who gets the call. You're talking directly to somebody with arranging that appointment and going to see them and handling the documents. So with that falls a little more responsibility to be clear and comfortable that this is definitely a document that they want to sign, and they have an idea of what they're signing. I'm not saying we explain documents, but think of it like in loan signings where we present documents. So get educated about these particular documents. I did do a skill builder on powers of attorney. I haven't done one on deeds. I may consider that, but go out and Google examples of these documents to make sure you know what they look like and what are some of the things that are required to be filled out, and where the signatures are and whose signature is being notarized, because you may have multiple signatures going on. You may have principal signer, you may have the agent who they're naming, and you may have witnesses. So that's a lot of signatures going on, and whose signature am I supposed to be notarizing? Understand the purpose of what a deed does, basically conveyance of real property. Somebody, the grantor, is giving up their rights to whoever the grantee is going to be. And it could be as easy as a quitclaim deed where they're fixing a misspelling of their name, or they're adding their spouse, so it's from themselves back to themselves and the spouse, or to themselves with a corrected spelling. It could be from themselves as people to the trust, and they're now going to be the trustees. Those are a little bit more easy and straightforward to see what's going on. There could be others where it's a transfer upon death deed. And in that case, the owner is saying, look, I'm going to live here till the end of my days, but as soon as I pass away, it automatically goes into ownership of my whoever, my children, my niece, whoever it is. And this is a way for somebody to protect their main asset, their home, when they don't really have any other assets, so they don't really need a trust to spend the money in a trust. Now, that's not all states. California has that, and there are a few others that have that. And that's a way for a person to protect their home when they don't want to spend the money on the trust, but they want to make sure their home doesn't land in probate. And then there's the other common deeds, the grant deeds that we probably see, and quitclaim deeds in our loan signings. As a general notary, I get a lot of quitclaim deeds where it's being signed off to the children, adult children, or to siblings of the owner. And of course it's family, so you're thinking, okay, that sounds good, but that's not always good. and the owner may or may not really know what it is they're signing. Powers of attorney. This is about granting the power of your signature, sharing your signature, allowing somebody else to represent you in decision making. It doesn't mean you give up your rights to make decisions or sign documents, but it does mean somebody else could be signing documents or making decisions on your behalf. And so when you give your rights of decision making and signature to somebody else, when you're going to give your property to somebody else, these are the two biggest concerns when it comes to any kind of financial abuse, whether it's elderly, which is more common, or anybody. So let's see if well, it doesn't want to go, my down button doesn't want to let me move forward. Why not? Why don't you want me to do that?
Can you just click the PowerPoint with your mouse? Sometimes
I'm not using a mouse, but
oh,
presenter screen doesn't say next. Oh, here it
at
does.
the top, yeah.
At the top. All right, I'll do it that way. Okay, so first of all, assessment is like the big key to all of this, is to be prepared to start assessing from the call you get. Who's the signer? Is the signer the one you're talking to? If you're not talking to the signer and it's somebody else saying, yeah, I want to get a power of attorney on my mother, or she's going to sign off her property to me, that's a red flag. It doesn't mean there's any abuse going on yet. It just means I may need to ask more questions about why isn't the mom talking to me? What's going on there? Is my signer alert and aware? Some of that I'll discover on the call, but a lot of times it's not the signer on the call. It is a family member or caregiver or friend. And so now I'm having to ask them, can they communicate directly with me in my language? They're not confused, at least not confused at the time they're with me. These are things that I'm going to share if it's not the caller, that I will investigate when I'm there further. I need to be confident that they are alert and aware and they can communicate with me, and I'm confident that they're voluntarily signing the document. It's important to know that there are a lot of states. As a matter of fact, the majority of states do not have code to tell you how to do this or what the requirement is. But there's a handful of states that actually require the notary to verify what I would call competency, alertness and awareness. I'm going to just pick one state today, other than California, where I know that they have specific statutes, and it's Florida. So if you're on the call and you're Florida, you may not take the acknowledgement or administer an oath to a person where you actually know there's either they've been adjudicated mentally incapacitated by a court, meaning now they're conserved, or where you just happen to, the person appears that they're mentally incapable of understanding the nature and effect of the document at the time you're with them, or they don't speak your language. Unless the document has been translated, they're looking at two versions, and your language version, the English, and then a secondary translated version so that they can read what it is they're signing. Particularly Spanish is probably the biggest one, probably for Florida and for California. So there's specific code in the state of Florida that gives you a little more guidance where you actually have knowledge or you actually observe a state of unawareness. And sometimes that state of unawareness is temporary. It might be a fixable situation. Maybe they took a medication. In that case, it might be rescheduling is the answer. Other times, it's a more permanent type of situation, and you may have to make other decisions. Can the principal sign their name unassisted? If I don't ask that question, I end up getting there, finding out they're going to have to do a signature by mark, which is not a big deal. I know how to handle that. But that requires witnesses. And if you're at a facility, you may or may not find anybody because staff won't do it. And so then you got to hunt down somebody that can provide that. Do they have the valid photo ID? Now, two issues there. You're at a facility and they don't have it there. Or the other issue is, yeah, I've got it, but it expired 10 years ago. And I find very commonly especially the older we get. When we get to that point where we can't drive anymore, that's the last license we hold on to. And we think it's good forever for ID. We know we can't drive with it, but we've got a card. They don't understand in notarization. It doesn't work that way. So I have to verify the word valid, current, something for them to understand, not the last one you got 10 years ago. I need the most current one you've got. And no, your social security card isn't going to cut it for me. I need, government issued photo ID, whatever your law requires. And then I happen to have knowledge about powers of attorney in particular. So I know that if I'm doing a financial one in California, I need some witnesses. So then I'm going to ask about that. Can you get some neighbors or somebody to pop over for 5 minutes to watch you sign? This is a very important item for a notary, not just because of blank spaces, but because they are added protection for you. The more eyeballs going on, the more people who are observing the situation, the better it is should something go wrong later. You're not the only one who was there, the only one. That's why I don't like to be a witness and a notary if you're in a state where that's allowed. I want extra ears, extra eyeballs going on to protect me. If I'm the only one saying, yeah, they were fine, then it's my word sitting in a court of law and nobody supporting me. But if I can say, and I had 2 witnesses there and, we consulted that everything was good. Now you got 3 people saying it. So I think that's a really important consideration. All right. Oh, now my arrow is working. So I did all this assessment up front. And then I get to the appointment. Guess what? Assessment continues when you get there because the circumstance is not what they described, right? Yes, they got ID, but it's 10 years ago. Yes, they're alert and aware, but not right now. Yes, the document's all complete. Oh, I decided to wait till you got here to make sure it's right. Right? So things are not going to be as they were described. As a matter of fact, most times they are minimized on the phone because they want to get you there, right? If they tell you on the phone, yeah, I don't know if they're going to make it. I don't know if they're alert and aware today. Maybe. You're going to have notaries say, well, then I'm not coming because they don't want to have to deal with that. So always reassess when you get there that what was presented to you is what's really happening. If the signer appears medicated, sedated, confused, reluctant to sign, at the time you're with them, that's all that matters. You might only have 10 minutes with them. During that 10 minutes, are they able to keep themselves oriented and alert and realize that you're the notary and you're there for a purpose and they're signing a document? 10 minutes isn't long, but if they can't stay oriented that long, that is an issue for me. And again, I need to find out why. Is this a fixable problem or is this not? Is the signer communicating with me, the notary, not through the family member? So yesterday I had a call. It was going to be a very difficult signing. By the time the whole story was done, I really felt bad for the family. I really got the situation. And the father is paralyzed from a stroke. He's got it going on up here, but he can't communicate it well. It's slurred. He does a lot of blinking with his eyes. He's able to communicate with his daughter. And I said, well, but what about me? I can't have him blinking his eyes at you and then you tell me what that means. That's not going to work for me. Can he answer my questions by blinking his eyes in a way that I feel those are not involuntary movement, but actually responses? And so it was probably a good half an hour of screening and talking about, well, what if this, what if that, what do you got? So finally, I say, okay, I'll come. I don't know if we'll make this happen, but let's be prepared for signature by mark. Let's be prepared with witnesses. Let's be prepared with all these things. So then about, I wasn't going to go for a couple of hours. She called me back. And she had told me, and the doctor says, the neurologist has documented he is still able to make his own decisions and communicate his own will. He has it going on up here. He just can't get it out here. So I'm thinking, okay, we've got some documentation. Let me see if I can make this work. I get a call maybe a half an hour or so before the appointment, and she called back and said his primary has written an order that says he's no longer able. to make decisions for himself or communicate for himself, he needs to be represented. That was the end of that appointment. I didn't even get out there. Fortunately, she went there ahead of time to be ready with all this stuff and found out that he had been seen, and this is now the story. So there was just no reason for me to come at that point. So these are things that I would have to ask as well. I do ask, is there any order, any court order? Are you conserved? Do you have a conservator? Somebody who's doing that already for you. Another question I might ask is, do you already have a power of attorney? Because that's a red flag. If they've got a trust and there's a power of attorney in that trust, everything's pretty much been set up for them. Now somebody's coming along and says, oh, I need a power of attorney. And now they're going to name themselves as the attorney, in fact, when it was somebody else back in the trust. To me, that's a red flag. There's inconsistency going on there. There might have been a specific reason why the parents chose certain children over the others, or siblings over the others, to make medical decisions versus financial decisions, and based on beneficiary requirements. So I look for anything that's inconsistent, and then I start investigating that. Now, does that make me a nosy notary? Sometimes I can see, like, why do you need to know this? You're just there to certify the signature. Get on with it. I will not be bullied or pushed in these situations with these documents. And I do let them know, in the case of a power of attorney, I'm going to pursue this a little more than I would if it was just renew his pension, so he can keep getting that automatic deposit. I don't really have so much issue with that. I have issues where rights are being transferred or properties being transferred. Was the document already signed? So this happened to me maybe 2 weeks ago. I went to the hospital. He was in the ICU, documents all prepared, a difficult signing. He had to grunt and slur, but actually he was very good. I could understand him. I felt confident that he was answering my questions correctly. So when I got to the last page, I see it's already been signed. It's kind of sloppy, but I see it's done. And he's got some paralysis on one side of his body. I turn the page around to him to show him, and I point at the signature. And I say, did you sign this document? Because that's what I have to do for an acknowledgement if I didn't watch it. I have to ask, did you sign this document? And he told me no, he did not sign that document. Okay. So then I wanted to make sure he was still understanding me. So I see this is your name signed here. Did maybe earlier today, maybe you signed it? Maybe your daughter presented it to you. There were 2 daughters there. No, he was adamant, absolutely not. He did not sign this document yet. So I looked at the daughters and I said, look, there are 2 ways to go. One is he's going to sign it now in front of me. So let me change the question. Do you want to sign this document? And he said, no, he did not want to sign the document. It's the first time it ever happened to me. Almost all the time they say, yeah, I signed it. Yes, I wanted to sign it. Not this time. No. Now the daughters are talking to each other, and it seems he has either a caregiver or he has a girlfriend or somebody that he wants to be appointed, not the daughters. Okay, guess what happened with that appointment? End of the appointment. I was there a good 15, 20 minutes getting through the interview, only to find out, 1, this is not going to happen, and 2, who signed the document? Now, it wasn't my business to really pursue, well, I want to know who signed the document. They both said, you know what, Dad, you want to leave it how it is now? That's fine. They tore up the document. That was the end of it. But I'm just saying, if you don't ask the question, especially with somebody who might be compromised in that way and they're limited in their communication, you need to pursue it. Otherwise, who knows what's happening? And one other story like that, but it went the other way. I had a guy, he spoke to me just fine, no issues. His document was signed. It was all filled out. I said, this is a power of attorney. It means that your daughter, who's been named, can sign your name to documents, any kind of business documents. Okay. And he said, yes, I already know. She explained it to me. I'm good with it. I said, I see it's already signed. Did you sign this? And he said, yes, we did it this morning. And he was in his recliner. And I thought, okay, I mean, really, it was a smooth signing. He had ID. Great. So I take care of the business. And then within, 3 days, a different daughter calls me. She doesn't know I'm the notary. She's just calling a notary. and says, my sister had my dad sign this financial power of attorney 3 or 4 days ago, and then she went to his bank account and took out $100,000 and put it in her own account. And he did not want a power of attorney. He can make his own decisions. He doesn't need any of this. We want to revoke it. And of course, I'm feeling bad because I was the notary and I thought everything looked good. I said, let me come today. And when I got there, as soon as I got to the address, I knew it was me. I go there and I say, look, I was that notary. This is my stamp. You just happened to get me again. All we have to do is a revocation, create that document on your computer. He can revoke it. Tell your sister she's not it. There you go. We'll reverse it. So get it done. Fabulous. I feel better. And he's in bed this time, but he's sitting up and he's still pretty communicative. Great. Get home. The next day, I have a voicemail from the first sister who says, did you know my dad's dying of brain cancer? He's on morphine and he had a major stroke after you left that first time. And now he can't even talk or recognize anybody. And my sister undid the documents that are letting me help him. Obviously, I'm in the middle of something nasty here. So I saved that voicemail. She went on and on. She was horrible. And I talked to him. If he had a stroke, for God's sake, he recovered pretty well because I saw no evidence. And if he was on morphine, wow, he was high functioning because I had no clue that that was going on. So obviously what was really happening is she got caught and now she's trying to backpedal what's going on here. I get called out a third time to the same guy. This is all within a week. This time I bring an attorney with me. A friend of mine's an attorney, elder law. And I said, Joyce, I want you to interview this guy to see, because I'm being told he had a stroke, he's on morphine, and now I'm worried maybe I'm not interviewing well. So she comes in, gets rid of everybody, and sure enough, she talks to him for 15 minutes. I'm in there making notes, and the guy is on top of it. He knows exactly what he wants. I don't know if he was on any kind of pain medication, but he had no signs of that. So the attorney creates an affidavit that says, these are my wishes. I want this, that, the other thing. And he signs it and I notarize it and she's the witness to it. He died the next day.
Oh, wow.
A month later, guess who's getting called in for deposition? So I get called in, the attorney gets called in, the first daughter, who of course stole all that money, and they stopped everything else finally. We were able to stop, so that's all she got. And they start making it sound like I'm the one that was the problem here, and that I should have never come back, and that I should have realized what kind of state he was in, and don't I know the effects of morphine, and blah, 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 blah. I mean, it was pretty bad. But after about an hour and a half of me continuing to say, this is what I observed, here are the notes in my journal. They wanted a copy of what I had. Here was my procedure. And they said, well, you brought an attorney in. That tells me you thought he wasn't competent. I said, no, all I did was look for an additional confirmation of what I already believed, that he was competent. So it was done, and that was the end of the lawsuit. They couldn't go anywhere with it, thank goodness. But I'm just telling you, these things can go sideways so fast. No matter how good a notary you are, you always need to watch. All right. Are they not familiar with it? So some people, you might say power of attorney, and they're embarrassed to tell you they don't know what that is, right? You're at their home, their bedside. So this is a document where you name somebody to take care of your business. Who might you name to do that? Oh, I would want so-and-so, my daughter. And if they don't say the relationship, I ask, well, what is she to you? That's my daughter. Great. And then, so do you understand that means they could write checks and they can talk to the MID and they can represent you in all aspects of your personal business to make sure they understand what a power of attorney can do, the effect of a power of attorney in general, not for them specifically, but in general. Because I want to make sure that the title of the document and with these kinds of people are not confusing. So I take a moment for that. Yes, great, they're familiar with it. Some red flags I watch out for: a family member, a caregiver seems to be in a hurry to get it done, and they're kind of pushing things along. The signer's reluctant to sign. The signer's language is second to your own. So for instance, I do handle general work in Spanish. I'm conversational. I can speak enough to get through the appointment, but I cannot explain documents. I wouldn't even if they were in English. So if they're having a document like a deed that's in English, they might speak to me in English, broken English. It doesn't mean they know how to read the document, because they're two different skill sets. Conversation is not the same as reading. Do they need to see this in their language? I would just ask, do you want to see this in your language before you sign it? They say, no, I get it. Great. I'm not there to push them. I just want to make sure I'm not stepping out of line. That when the caregiver's the attorney in fact, and there's no successor, I'm worried about that. So your caregiver's going to get everything, going to get your property, whatever. I'm concerned that you don't have any children. This is a #1 area of elder abuse, is with caregivers who've been trusted, who have been taking care of them for the last 5 years or 10 years. Maybe their children are far away. I have concerns. It isn't necessarily mean that the caregiver is planning to steal anything. It's just not a good situation. I always ask, would you like an attorney? I have elder law attorney that I am connected with. I'm on the board for the Senior Advocacy Project in Modesto and Stanislaus County. So I do have those connections to just verify this is a good situation. If there's tension and arguments between the people in the room, it's happened to me. I went to a hospital. The son, like a son, had been gone for years and years and years, and now he shows up out of the blue, and he wants to be the attorney in fact, and he's got the documents ready to go. And the poor guy, he's the patient in the bed, he's not quite sure what's happening and why is this happening, because he's got a lady companion for the last 20 years he's been helping him, and he doesn't feel like he needs any help right now. But the son is insistent. She is not your wife. I am the person who should be doing it. In any case, I had to kick them all out of the room and talk with him. And when I talked with him privately and there was nobody in the room, he said, I don't want to sign this. I'm happy with the way things are. She's helping me. He's been gone for 5 or 10 years, however long it was. I don't even know why he's back. So I said, okay, you know what? Let me just leave this document with you. I would like you to take a look at it when you're feeling more up to it. And if you decide that this is the right thing for you, no matter who you want to appoint, here's my card, call me back, I'll come take care of you. Then I walked out to the nurse's station and I let them know what was going on. I told the family, I'm not notarizing anything today. He's in no condition to do so. And then I went to the nurse's station and I reported it as potential, not that anything was happening yet, but the potential. And I was concerned they might call another notary in who may not be as diligent to check it out. And I wanted them to be aware of it in case APS had to be, called out. Make sure you assume control start to finish. It can just unravel and everybody's talking over everybody and you're just standing there in the room. Don't be a bystander. You're in charge. This is all about what you're doing with that signer. So ask them not to interfere with your communications. Or ask them to leave the room if it looks like the signer's reluctant to speak to you directly because they're all standing there. I don't kick them all out at first. I just let them know, look, this is between me and the signer. If you want to observe, stand back. And I don't want you asking questions. I don't want you offering answers. Everything needs to be between me and my signer. If there's witnesses needed, don't be both. Be a notary. Let them get witnesses. If they're going to use family, most states, a witness can be family. Remember, the rule is impartial. It's not best practice to use family. I will tell you that. I don't recommend it, but sometimes that's all there is. And then I only present the important elements. Like you would present a note that says, I'm pointing out on your CD, here's your interest rate, here's the years, here's your payment. I would point out, this is the person you're going to share the power of your signature with. I might ask them if I haven't already, and that person is what to you? Oh, it's my son, my this, okay, great. And what kinds of business did you want them to handle? Because I see a list and they're usually initialing all of the above. So I say, okay, did you look at all of these? Everything is good. Yes, no, whatever. I don't, if I get the answers I'm looking for, I don't go further. But if I get confusion there, if I say, oh no, all they're going to be doing for me is they're going to be taking care of paying the rent or talking to the MID for me, but it says all of the above, I have a concern about that. Sometimes my concerns, I look for help. If I'm at a facility, I might be staff, the charge nurse or the nurse's station, asking for orders. Are there orders? You don't have to tell me what's wrong with them, but is there any reason they shouldn't be signing a document? If you're in a long-term care facility, which is also known as a skilled facility, and it's a healthcare directive, ombudsman. That's what they're there to do, is to make sure that they are capable of understanding what this document means, that somebody else can speak for them when they can't regarding their healthcare, their medical situation in all aspects. If you have issues that are fixable, reschedule. It's a business decision to decide, am I going to charge them for the travel or not? That's your business decision. But I think it's always a good decision that if you're not confident that this is going to be a good notarization, reschedule that. If there's no witnesses and witnesses are needed, yeah, I think you need witnesses to put them in your journal, and, in the additional information, so that if you get called back, you can say, oh, here were some other people that I documented that were there also observing these things. Sometimes your signer or the document is just disqualified, and it's a good reason to reschedule, which is the document is not complete and they're not sure what to do, or the signer doesn't have the ID and now they got to get credible witnesses. They can't just get anybody in the hospital. It has to be people who know them. So now I'm going to, look at, can I come back if it's a fixable issue? And sometimes I just have to say no. And that's difficult. And family right away is going to say, well, then what am I supposed to do? Well, I would tell them to seek legal advice. I do have attorneys that I can refer them to, but if you don't, that might be something you start thinking about, building relationships with family law attorneys or other attorneys who are elder law. That would be another specialty, who might be able to help them go the right way. It may or may not require conservatorship. There may be other legal vehicles to help them, but I'm not an attorney, so I don't know what they are. Protect yourself a couple ways. One is, make sure you document in the additional information or notes section if you have witnesses, if you did screening, who was the agent that they named, if there were special circumstances such as a signature situation or language barriers, anything that will help you should you ever be called to testify about why you did what you did and who was there and what happened. The better you are at doing these things with these documents, the less often that you're going to be called in the first place. And when you are called, the better protected you're going to be as a notary. And this is a real issue in the general notary world. So if you mostly do loan signings and you're just thinking about getting over in this area, make sure you're armed and prepared to protect yourself and to protect your signers. And that's what I wanted to present today. I'm going to stop share. Bill, come back.
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you. That was, one thing that I love about working with you, Laura, is your quick little presentation was super in-depth and really awesome and eye-opening for so many I can already see on here. So there are a few questions that are specific about that presentation I'd love to jump into. Before we do that, while we have everybody here, I'd also like to tell them about your
Oh, yeah.
So they can dive in even deeper. Sorry, we got some background noise. Let me get rid of them. There we go. How to notarize adoption paperwork, right? That's the one we're talking about coming up in August. This is another navigating an entire process. And you're going to be sharing that with us on August 10th? August
10th. We're going to take a look at the adoption process and the notary's role in that. What are the documents that we're asked to notarize? How many different places might we be asked to go? I go to doctor's appointments, CPA appointments, employer appointments, the home. There's lots of places I'm asked to travel, lots of different documents I'm asked to notarize, duplicate, triplicate. There's apostille work. So it's a whole nother, like trust. It's another whole specialty. Now, I hate the words general notary work because really it's just a lot of different specialties. And if you can prepare yourself to know what they're about, you can get in on that.
Yeah, so I just posted a link, guys. That one requires registration, but it's completely free.
Yeah.
It's going to be another 20-minute presentation, which means we'll probably be there for about an hour with some awesome Q&A, because this is a pretty in-depth process too. So I'm excited about it. And it's one of those niche adoption paperwork where you actually get to use the embosser, which is why I became a notary in the first place. So I'm real excited to learn about that as well. So I posted the link to register for the How to Notarize Adoption Paperwork in the chat window. But now let's dive in and talk about some of these questions here.
Okay.
Okay. So what kind of questions do you ask to test the competency of a signer? Is there anything outside of the logistics of the signing itself?
Most of it is common conversation that you would engage with somebody. So I don't say who's the president, but I would talk about the weather to see if they're consistent with what the weather is. I would talk about why I'm there to see their response to that. I would ask, oh, who's this lovely person right here? And see if they can tell me the relationship from themselves to other people in the room. So one of the things that an elder law attorney taught me was that, do they know who they are? Do they know who they are in relationship to other people? Do they know what they have? Right? So those are like the three things I look for. And again, I'm not testing competency. What I am looking for is they're alert and aware enough to understand they're signing a document that's going to do something, right? That's what I'm looking for.
Deborah asked a great question about what happens when there's a power of attorney out there and the original's already been signed and notarized and now it's getting revoked. How is anyone supposed to know about the first POA and that it's been canceled or revoked? And yeah.
Right. And so the thing is part of the instructions on a revocation is that the previous attorney in fact people must be notified either by certified mail or hand delivery. They must get notification. And of course, if it's a healthcare, you want to take that back to send it to your doctor's office. So the most current one is on file, the revocation, and then the new one. Unfortunately, it's not required by law to do that. So there are people that just keep doing newer ones. And if the document doesn't have a clause for revocation built in it that says this supersedes everything before now, you can have multiple powers of attorney and everybody's saying I'm in charge. And then now it's a legal battle.
Joanne asked a good question about witnesses. If you're just getting some random person to be the witness, how would you ever get a hold of that same person to be called into a court to validate their witnessing?
So when you write down their name, you could write down a phone number. Mostly when I write down the names, I'm not so concerned that they will be called in to testify, although that could happen. I'm mostly documenting, look, I was not the only person in that room. Here is Joe Signer and here is, Jane Signer, and they are documented in my book that they were there and they observed what I observed. There were three of us. And that has so much more power than it's just me. And if you want to, in light of concern that they could be called, because this is a really high risk particular one, then you could put a phone number or an email address in your additional information in case they had to be called.
Laura, I'll leave it up to you if you want to answer this next question now or if you want to wait until another time. But this is regarding a power of attorney. What if the caller is is a family member and the grantor's in jail? He's had a few of these that he's signed.
Yeah, I actually do those.
Yeah, I know you do those quite a bit. Do you want to address that now, or? Well,
so a jail. First of all, the ID issues are different in different states for that. California, we are allowed, if it's a jail, not a prison level, but jail, we can use whatever identification is used on the inside, like a wristband, whatever that information is. So that takes care of that issue for me. In terms of the caller is the spouse, the parent, usually their parents of their adult children who have been put in jail for something. And I've handled powers of attorney for them. They're not healthcare directives. They're usually financial, so they can take care of business for their kid while they're in there. When I go into the jail, usually the parents create the document, everything's done. I go into the jail, I meet with the inmate, and again, I verify, your parents sent me in here, this is a document they created, they have named themselves as the person who's going to do business for you while you're in here, is that something you want to sign? I don't really have competency issues with people in jail. There's other issues. And then when I handle deeds for jail, it's usually a spouse, and they have to sell the house, unfortunately, to fund the legal bills or whatever the problem is. And then the other reason I go in there is they're taking their children to Mexico or, out of the country, and they need to give permission because even though they're incarcerated, they haven't given up their rights as parents.
Right. All right. Beautiful. And we're going to dive deeper into jail appointments and other facility work as well. There's another skill builder coming up for that as well. So guys, we're right at 8:47. I know there's a lot of great questions out there. Let's move on. So Laurel asked a great question just about general loan signings. She says that, let me get to it. There it is. Okay. I can only visit for them. Can a notary do a loan signing for a sibling? My brother's purchasing a new home and I will be signing in September, and he asked if I can do the signing for him. Laura?
So the answer is state specific. Some states, I think Florida's one, does not allow direct siblings, parents, children to notarize for each other. So check your state law about whether family is allowed to notarize directly for family. If the answer is yes, then the next question becomes, are you impartial? You're not listed as a beneficiary. You might not ever get the property or benefit from the property. And then then the last question I would ask myself is this a good idea? Is the money I'm going to save my brother for doing it, assuming I'm doing it for free, worth any potential circumspection about these documents later? So that's how I would look at it.
Great questions. And I always think, if I'm going to be somewhere along the line, I might be a beneficiary to some of that property, then I'll just not take the appointment. But you can still use the appointment to your favor as well and help form relationships with other notaries or, with the title company, some way to leverage that appointment into a deeper connection with somebody.
And Bill, that is a great thought, which is, do you have notary colleagues that you might be able to tap one of them to help out?
Exactly. Okay, so when you receive a risky assignment like what we've been talking about, do you require cash payment upon arrival for the travel fee?
That's a business decision. So, and it depends on your state, what they allow you to do. So for me, my business decision is that the appointments that I take that are local to me, meaning they're 10 minutes away, all the hospitals, facilities are for me. My business decision is I don't charge. I don't. If the reason is something that was not anticipated. So if I tell them clearly, you need ID, it needs to be current, and it needs to be this, that, or the other thing. And then I get there and they say, we don't have that. Now I'm a little ticked because I took the time to tell them what they needed. And then they say, oh, well, if you wait here, I'll drive wherever. It'll be 10 minutes, which is really a half an hour by the time you go and come and park in the parking lot, And then I tell them, okay, you know what? I can come back, but I came this time and you weren't prepared. Now, if the story is different, I forgot to ask, or it's something that really couldn't be managed up front, I tend to not charge as long as they're going to ask me back. So yeah, if you ask me to come back the second time, great. We won't worry about this appointment and I'll come back. So sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. I evaluate that situation, and sometimes it's a better benefit for me to let it go than it is to deal with, the $25 or $30.
Yeah, I agree. And one thing that I found too is, especially when you spend, you talk a lot about assessing and you spend a lot of time assessing, but the other side of assessment is building relationships, having those types of conversations,
Right.
understanding somebody's situation, having the empathy and the compassion and the expertise to guide them along the process forms relationships. So when you have that, what I found is when I get to these general notary work appointments, even if something has happened where we can't proceed, I don't charge them, but they insist on paying many times. And sometimes that's almost like a gratuity. They're just stuffing money into your pockets because they want you to be taken care of. They might feel a certain way about it. So you can very oftentimes get compensated more than you would ever bill for it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Marty asked a great question too, Lori, and he says, are notaries mandatory reporters? So if you see, like when this came up while you were talking about the elder abuse possibility happening inside the hospital, if you are we required by law to report something that we see?
So I'm not, well, first of all, in California, they tried to put through a bill to make us mandated reporters and it failed. The judges determined that we don't spend enough time with them. We only see them for a 10, 15-minute window. We don't know what happened before we got there or what's happening after we get there. And they decided a notary should not be a mandated reporter. However, that does not mean that I am not able to report something I suspect or see. So it's optional for me to do that, and I choose to do that. Most states are in the same deal. They're not mandated reporters. I'm not aware, if somebody's on the call in your state, you are a mandated reporter, I'd love to hear it, because I have not found a state where the notary is a mandated reporter, which means you are required, like a teacher would be, that you are required to report suspected abuse.
Excellent. A lot of times it's more of a gut instinct too, Laura. Wouldn't you agree? Like sometimes something just doesn't feel right, and I'll look for any excuse not to proceed sometimes.
It does. And some of us, remember, some of us had a life before we were a notary. Before I was a notary, I ran a 6-bed facility for elderly long-term care. So I have a lot stronger background and training because of that business that I ran as the administrator and my connections with the hospitals than maybe other notaries who don't come from that background. So I may have a higher comfort level than others. And if this is not comfortable for you, then don't take these kinds of assignments.
Beautiful. All right, we have a few more minutes. Does anybody that's live on the call have a couple questions for us? Anybody want to ask?
Well, I just unmuted, and I'll just say one thing. I haven't had a lot of experience because I haven't done a lot of general notary work, but I have had some experience with powers of attorney. And one of the things that I want to point out is that you have to keep compassion out of what you do. I ran into a situation, I may have talked about it once before, where a church group called me to a woman's home. She was dying. She had cancer. She was very ill. And they told me that it was a terrible situation. Her husband was not on any of the bank accounts, had no money, couldn't even afford to feed himself. And they had created this power of attorney to allow him to take control of their finances, which of course wouldn't do them any good once she passed away. Powers of attorney are not good after someone dies, but I spent 2 hours at the home trying to see if she could be lucid enough to let me know just everything that Laura described, knew what she was signing, what it was for. And ultimately, I couldn't do it, and I left. And I felt so badly. And she passed away that night. They called me the next day and said that she had passed away. And I felt very guilty. And then I got to thinking about it. And I thought, there was a reason this husband was not on any of the financial, the bank accounts or anything. So there must have been some sort of a backstory there, or maybe they were getting a divorce. Maybe it was a second or third marriage and she wanted everything to go to her children. I mean, I didn't know. And it really bothered me. The compassionate part of me was very torn. And then I got to thinking about it. And Laura, I think you and I have talked about this before. I was just so torn about it. And so you have to really think when you're doing something like this. You cannot think with your heart, which is hard to do when you get into certain situations. And, you have to think with your head. As an escrow manager, when I was running two different companies, one of the things that I refused to do when people would walk in, I refused to do powers of attorney. I didn't want to take that responsibility on for the companies to put them in that position. So I know a lot of people would disagree with me, but that was one of the decisions that I made. So I'm very comfortable with signings and getting the validated documents from the title companies.
Great feedback. I love it. I love that you brought up compassion too, because I think compassion is a critical element and sometimes a missing element in what we do for some notaries. But having compassion, but not letting compassion override our logic and what we can do from a legal standpoint is real important as well. Irene has a question here. Says, after a signing appointment is over, do you send a thank you or some sort of card to stay in touch for the future? Well, I'll take that one. I absolutely do. I love staying in touch with people on that level. And I credit much of my success as a loan signing agent, not only to the signers when appropriate, but also to escrow officers. I don't do it necessarily for every signing anymore because I have pretty consistent clients and they probably get more annoyed by getting thank you cards for every signing I do. But I love to send a card. I love working with signers and connecting with signers at the appointments and then basically getting that permission to stay in touch via card. That's what I like to do. And then to tag on to that, I see a question here. Do you leave a business card at the signing or is that considered bad taste? I consider it good business. There are some signing companies that might have some rules, and I encourage you to just stay in integrity with whatever you agree to do. Just follow those rules. There's plenty of opportunities out there to leave a business card. Laura, you have something on that?
Well, in the general world too, I almost every single time leave a business card, no matter what the outcome was, whether I could complete it or not complete it. I always leave a card. And of course, my invoices or receipts for the payment are branded with my name and business address and phone number as well. And then when I handle, for instance, when I have long-term relationships, like with the trust companies, I get called back to those people. I was the notary who handled their trust. Now they have some other documents they need notarized, and they go back to me because I was the one in their home helping them with something that was significant and important and took some skill. So they see me as not just a notary like at the UPS store. They see me in a different light, and I get called back many times from previous clients that started as a trust client, and now I'm getting called back for other things.
Love that. And from a sales perspective, guys, anything that you can do to take control of the communication is going to be even better. So business cards, I know they're very powerful. In fact, probably your most powerful marketing tool. But anything that you can do to get permission to send them a card, to stay in touch with them via email, especially on the general notary work side, because the more you stay in touch with them, there's always going to be people buying, selling, dying, or being born. They're going to need your notary, and if you can stay top of mind, you're going to grow your business. Let's see. I think we have time for one more question here, and this was from, where is she? There it is, Elizabeth. This is about signing up with signing agencies and their websites. Am I required to put the address that I have under my commission, or can I put a different address? She has a different home address than her business address. I actually get this question quite a bit. When you're signing up with signing agencies, you can use whatever address you want kind of your zip code to be based out of. There's not little ninjas back there coordinating and making sure that your notary commission address matches your business address, not your home address.
Right.
Work that way. You don't have to stress out too much about it. Know that a lot of them have algorithms that go based on your zip code.
Right.
So you will get more signings for whatever zip code you give them. That's usually how it works. Anything else further on that, Laura?
No, I agree. When it comes to you're no longer using an address, remember, Secretary of State, and this is in all the states, they need to know where you're located. And if you've provided them a home address and that changes, make sure that you're notifying them per their specific requirements. In California, we have to do it in writing, and it has to be via a method that produces a receipt. Whether it is my business address, because I have an office address, or it's my home address, or I work for a business and the business name changes. If any of those three things change, I'm required to tell the Secretary of State.
Yep, good reminder there for sure. Okay, guys, that's we're just after 9 o'clock. That was an awesome presentation, Laura. Thank you. And guess what that means? We have a ton of questions for next week, so we'll dive in on those questions next week, and keep them coming. I'll send out a couple emails. Just feel free to reply to those, or you can just email me directly at orders@notarycoach.com, and we'll do our best to get those questions uploaded into the presentation. Thank you, guys. Have a great week. Thank you for growing yourself and your business on a Tuesday for Tuesday Notary Titans. Bye, Laura. Bye, Carol. Thank you for popping in.